giant boogers, I concluded that my mere presence had been judged strange enough to warrant the glares. I'd passed through small towns before, but I had never drawn that much attention. Must be the U-Haul, I said to myself. One thing was evident. Living there was going to be far different than life in the city. In the city, everyone tried hard to pretend not to notice anyone else. They certainly didn't all turn around and watch people they'd never met the way the citizens of Coventry did. I felt like a criminal, but I knew I hadn't done anything wrong. Not wanting to be inspected any longer, I checked the directions I'd written out. I'd been advised my GPS would be useless in Coventry because it was on some sort of magnetic anomaly or something, and then sped up. My first impression of Hangman's house was underwhelming at best. As I parked the car in the narrow gravel driveway, I could only hope that the inside was in better shape. The outside was a decaying old Victorian with at least 2 stories. There was possibly a third, or it could have been an attic space with windows. The paint was peeling, and some of the windows were boarded over. I hoped that was to protect them from the elements, and not because they were broken. I got out of the car and retrieved my purse from the passenger side. After digging out the keys, I took a deep breath and crossed the patchy lawn to the weathered front steps. The first step was the scariest. The worn gray boards looked as though they might not hold my weight. I winced at the groan the riser made when I stepped up, and it bent slightly. But the old wood held. I'm going to have to get this fixed or someone is going to hurt themselves and sue me, I said to no one in particular. The rest of the steps were equally creaky, as were the wood planks of the front porch. I figured that, at the very least, it would be hard for someone to sneak up on me. Not that there was any reason for me to believe that someone would want to sneak up on me. I put the key in the deadbolt on the front door and turned it slowly. The door opened with a loud creak, and I stepped through gingerly. There was no reason for me to expect that something might jump out at me, but the fear lingered there in the back of my mind. I'd spent too many nights watching horror movies alone in my pajamas, and Hangman's house looked like the epitome of every house in those films. I sighed deeply, and it was as if the house sighed with me. The inside wasn't any better than the outside. The scent of dust hung heavy in the stale air. I found the light switch next to the door and flicked it on. Figures, I grumbled, and started across the room for the window. The power was on, but the lights were dull. Even with them on, it was still gloomy and dark in the room. I grabbed hold of the thick velvet drapes and yanked them apart. Sunlight flooded the room and made it look 10 times worse. I wanted to yank them closed again, but figured that wouldn't do any good. There was no point in hiding from the reality of the house. I tried not to think of the house as a metaphor for my life, but the idea didn't escape me. Sometimes I wished I could pull the drapes closed and hide from the mess my life had become as well. But just like with Hangman's house, it wouldn't do any good. The room next to the living room was a dining room with a large table. It was covered in a worn tablecloth that had probably been very beautiful and expensive at one time. A large silver candelabra sat in the middle of the table. It needed a good polish, as the metal was quite tarnished. There were half-melted black candles in each of the candelabra's cups. I thought that was a little odd, but I figured maybe my great-aunt Maude had just run out of regular candles the last time she used the candle holder. The windows in the dining room were etched, and the long white curtains looked moth-eaten. Wallpaper peeled off the walls, and the floor groaned with every step. My next stop was the kitchen. It wasn't dirty beyond a thick layer of dust. Inside the pantry, I found shelves full of decades-old cans and boxes of dry goods. Mice had gotten into the boxes and made a huge mess on the floor. The appliances were old, and when I approached the refrigerator to open it, I heard a disconcerting rattling sound. The stove didn't appear to be in any better shape. I won't be able to cook anything in here without